Next up today, Disney CEO Bob Iger saying that selling ESPN direct-to-consumer is, in fact, on the table. Here's what he said at Deutsche's media conference yesterday.
By and large, rights are not an issue. Legacy distribution deals, in some cases, are. Not that they limit us in terms of our ability to do it, but they limit us in terms of how we take it out to the consumer. And I don't want to get into any details. Okay. But it can be done. It's just there are issues that we have to face in doing it. Pricing is one of them, by the way.
As of December, ESPN had lost about 7 million subs over the past 2 years. John, he has said before it can be done, but his time frame was a little bit longer. This is getting a little more specific now, coming down to prices.
The calculus seems to have shifted in this debate over the top. I mean, it seems clear now over the top is not just a cheaper way to get content. In a lot of cases, it seems like these skinny bundles or even over-the-top content through apps is actually going to be more expensive. So how do you do it in a way where the experience is good enough that people are happy about what they get? I believe Iger also talked about the quality of experience isn't quite there where he'd want to get it in order to release ESPN that way. It seems very clear now because ESPN is the one, just kind of in terms of monetary value, that you would expect to be among the last to move. If it's moving, it's just a matter of figuring out how. We're going to be there in a couple years.
Talk about a tipping point. Jason, how would you do this? How would you set the calculus if you had to make this move?
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest city, so it's going to be the last one to fall, but it's going to fall. And I think, you know, it's a matter of negotiating with the big direct TVs and the big, you know, cable companies of the world. But we've seen HBO do it, and, you know, obviously they're feeling the sting of 7 million lost subscribers. So it's pretty clearly going to happen. And then why not? People spend $125 a month. Let them pick the 10 services at $10 a month they want, and then pay $25 a month for your internet access.
But he pointed out, Jason, that the sticking point is pricing. And as some of these skinny bundles come together, I think there remains a question. What is ESPN worth, especially as they are beginning to continue to spend so much on rights? They are losing subscribers. How do you value a business like that that has always been number one, but where the ground is shifting pretty dramatically underneath them?
Who they have to convince to get money from is the big issue here, right? They were negotiating previously with DirecTV, Cablevision, Time Warner, whoever. Now they've got to actually go to the consumer and convince the consumer to give them money directly. This will be a little bit scary for them, but look at HBO, look at Netflix, look at Amazon. You know, these companies are getting people to pay direct. It will actually be huge for them when they have a database of all these customers, and then they can slice and dice it. Right now, they don't have a database of customers. They don't have all these credit cards on file. They're going to get tens of millions of credit cards on file, and that's going to make them very powerful. This will be huge for ESPN.
Oh, well, especially for a company who, Jason, it's been said, leverages consumer products probably better than any other entertainment company out there.
Yeah, correct. I mean, their advertising is going to be huge. Their ability to embed products will get better. It's just going to be amazing. There's no reason that sports fans won't pay $10, $15, $20 a month for ESPN. And they're going to be able to do things that no other network can do because of the breadth of content. But what it will do is a lot of the content that maybe doesn't actually make money is going to have to go away. And they're going to have to fight for every program, which, by the way, is how consumers want to eat. Consumers are disgusted by the buffet. They want to go and they want to have organic food and pick very specific programming. And once you do that, you're eating healthy. The buffet looks really disgusting.
But thinking back to what Iger said on February 9th at the company's earnings call, where he said, we're not going to let the disruptors disrupt us.
Yeah,
We will decide when the time is right to go over the top. Are they losing control here?
Of course. Of course. Consumers have no interest in paying $125 a month, $1,500 a year to cable companies, DirecTV. That's not what they're interested in. Once you cut the cable and you start picking what you want, and there's all these exceptional pieces of content out there, it's very liberating. It's very freeing. The average American watches 3 or 4 hours of TV a day. They spend $3 or $4 a day. Why not spend that money picking what you want and getting rid of all this waste? I mean, how many channels do we all actually watch? CNBC plus 3 others.
Exactly. I'm glad you made that.
Who are these 3 others?
NBC. No. You make an interesting point, but I wonder about the loss of control. I mean, isn't part of the narrative here that user-generated content has not become the juggernaut we expected? I mean, YouTube is chasing celebrities, a few user-generated folks who rose to the level of being marketable, but largely, you know, Facebook is going after the NFL. YouTube is trying to sign bona fide celebrities now. a lot of the same people still have control. It's just the distribution methods have changed dramatically.
Yeah, I think Bob Iger is doing a little bit of a show here. He's like, oh, my God, we're going to lose control. But actually, I think he's going to love this. He's going to love going to direct-to-consumer. And, yeah, everything is coming together. So if you look at the advertising pie, the Internet now is roughly a third, and advertising on TV is still half. The Internet just went right past outdoor, print, and radio, right? We demolished those three categories. Now what's happening is what happens with video, and those two things are actually merging into one. And when two things merge together, and you have the rights, like Bob Iger owns everything in the world, Marvel, Star Wars, ESPN. This guy owns all the assets. He is going to crush it. Disney is a huge buy. They're going to have all the chips. And it doesn't matter what pipe they distribute it to. They're going to get paid. It's just going to be this little, transition that's going to be hard. But he is inside laughing and thrilled with this.
Jason, let's move on here. Square tonight, as we said, reporting after the bell. First earnings report since going public in November. Kayla has the exclusive tonight with Jack Dorsey this afternoon on Closing Bell. And there's a lot to get to, Kayla. Where do you start?
Well, I think, Carl, the place you start is really with Square's own performance. It's its first quarter as a public company. It's not expected to be a profitable one. The street is expecting a loss of 13 cents per share, despite the fact that revenues overall are expected to grow more than 50%. Especially hardware revenues are really going to be a big part of this, because this transition to wireless chip readers has been one thing that Square has been really trying to position itself to win. But because of that and because of other headwinds, the research and development costs are skyrocketing, and that's why they won't be able to post a profit, or at least the street expects they won't be able to post a profit today. That's something that investors are going to be closely watching. If there is not a profit this quarter, where is that path to profitability? In fact, we asked CEO Jack Dorsey that very question when the company went public back in November. Here's what he said.
As any entrepreneur would tell you, and any one of our sellers, you have to invest in your business and you have to grow your business. And, we don't see this as a loss. We see this as an investment in our business, and it costs money. So, we have an understanding of our business. We have a very clear sense of the controls of the business. We showed a break even in Q2 of this year. And that really proves that, we have a business that can see that, but we want to invest in growth.
The stock actually broke below its IPO price earlier this year. It's up about 40% from the bottom, but investors are searching for some metrics, some trend line to be able to value this company on. Most payments companies are valued against net income because they are profitable. In Square's case, that is obviously not the case. Other big picture items: is Square Capital going to be the source of growth we think it will be? How are they viewing the frenemies, to borrow Jim Cramer's terms, in Visa, PayPal, the big banks that are big investors in Square, but also increasingly on their heels? So there's going to be a lot to talk about after the bell. Those earnings hit at 4 p.m. And Jason Calacanis, who's right here with me, and of course, the narrative today will hopefully be about Square for this company and the long-term growth that they are hoping to talk about, but you think it's going to be hard for them to control that message.
The cloud, congratulations on getting the interview. He's not talking to anybody, by the way, so you really scored one there. Yeah, I think the narrative is going to continue to be he's a half-time CEO, and the results are not great, and Twitter is running out of bullets, and people are very down on the business, and then Square is a growing business, so it'd be one thing if people felt he was 100% focused on either of these businesses, that maybe they could, in Twitter's case, come out of the tailspin, and in Square's space, get to break even or profitability. I don't think anybody's going to buy either of those things. He's got a lot to prove, and the clock is running out. I don't think he's got more than 2 quarters to run both companies.
Carl, John, I will say one thing that is working in this company's favor is that where Dorsey has talked about this narrative around having a team to help him run these companies, he does have a very solid team in place at Square. There have been fewer questions about the strength of that team at Square than there have been at Twitter, so I would expect that to be a message the company hopes to drive home.
Kramer's question this morning, guys, was when you hire, John, who do you funnel to Twitter and who do you funnel to Square, and how do you square what he called that conflict of interest?
That's a tough one, because so often when I talk to executives in Silicon Valley, they talk about, well, I just want to get the smartest people and then in a lot of cases figure out where to put them. Well, in this case, you got 2 places where you need to put them. He needs obviously a clear vision of the difference between the skill set needed in Square versus in Twitter. I think he can make an argument to that one, but it's not clear. I mean, Square could turn into a sort sort of Salesforce.com for small business in terms of the data and the understanding of the data that they need to have in order to make these bets on where they put capital.
Small part of their business right now.
Small part right now, but the other part, the bigger part, arguably getting commoditized. The data could be their lifeline in the future. But he's got to tell two very complicated stories at the same time to investors. Neither one an easy job, Carl.
Jason, you've pointed out his challenges running both companies again and again. But how would you handle that hiring question?
Yeah, I mean, there's no good answer. I mean, if you find a great CFO and both companies need it, where would you send one? And this is the kind of stuff that's going to dog him until either both stocks rebound or he, picks a company to run and puts somebody in charge of Square, or Twitter gets bought. So I think there's two things that are going on behind the scenes. One is Twitter is for sale and somebody's going to try to buy it. That's still going on. Maybe they'll say it's not for sale, but I think it's actually for sale at the right price. And then I think with Square, is there a better person to run that company who has more experience doing payments? And then, listen, Jack can work both of those issues until one sorts itself out. I think that's what's actually going on behind the scenes, because no rational set of board of directors would allow somebody with no experience running a public company to run two at the same time. This is crazy.
Jason, always good to talk to you. Thanks so much.